Alright guys, welcome back to a new episode. I'm super excited to get into this one because we've just got a lot of topics to go through because a lot's been going on this week, like I've said before, but I've just been ruminating on a lot of different topics and I'm just really excited to get into it. We're going to go over tax, we're going to go through free speech things like the Digital Duty of Care Act, that's getting a little bit popular this week. We're also going to go over the housing crisis because it is just can annoy me how simple it actually is, but all of these politicians are just overcomplicating the issue so much. So let's just get into it. Now, this week, the federal budget's still very much a point of discussion. So I've just been ruminating on this a little bit, okay? We are taxed so much. Seriously, just thinking about it this week, I'm just like, oh my God. We are taxed so fucking much in this country. And look, before we get into this rant, because I do get carried away, I'm just disclosing this is all in my opinion, okay? Political opinion. All in my opinion. But first of all, obviously, we can have a look into how much citizens get taxed, or how much the people of Australia get taxed, which is absolutely a super important topic. But I do think that we just need to sort of invert this just a little bit and have a look at the government. Okay, baseline. The government's way too fucking big. Okay, Albanese, since he became Prime Minister, has hired 40,000 people in the public sector. Doing what? Okay, what job are you doing, guys? I'm not too sure there, but that is millions of dollars going out the door. Okay, we have a huge government that has also proven, this is the very important part, that it cannot handle money because we're over $1 trillion in debt. Now, just looking back at, the people aspect of it, okay, the citizens of Australia, or I keep saying citizens, but I know permanent residents are taxed as well, but the people of Australia, okay, what the government is essentially doing is taking away a high percentage of money from businesses, companies, from people who innovate that would have potentially reinvested that money into, I don't know, fucking funding themselves, okay, which I would think would be positively impacting the economy and, potentially creating more jobs. But instead of doing that, instead of supporting the people, okay, not even supporting them, just allowing them to save a little bit extra money instead of taxing them, 47%, it's ridiculous. Instead of doing that, and being a positive, it is now given to the large government who obviously doesn't know how to spend it, like we've said before, because stupid campaigns get pushed, spent on useless things like advertisements that don't even communicate what they're trying to tell you. And on top of all of this, as the baseline, it really just doesn't feel like we have any say on how it is spent. Our roads, for God's sake, how many potholes are in the goddamn roads right now? It is ridiculous, and it's everyone in Australia, that's a sort of a trend now, okay? The roads are shit. And also, just expanding on this just a little bit here, I believe in capitalism, right? So it feels like the government right now has a lot to do with companies, has a lot to do with businesses, has a lot to do with people's lives, and I really don't like that. It's obviously just stifles innovation and it doesn't support anyone wanting to have a go and taking a little bit of that risk to maybe start a business because you're just going to get taxed into the ground. So look, guys, what do you think about that? Let me know your perspectives on having a large government, big government, how much we get taxed, what do you guys think about that? And also, I could just expand on this so much because it's so frustrating. Once you get into it, you sort of talk about tax and then you go into, okay, capitalist, socialist society, let's talk about that then. And there's so many layers to this that we could go into. And just adding to that other bit of the rant about capitalism stuff, not living in a capitalist society is not fundamental to human psychology, right? It's not fundamental to how we operate. So I can expand on this a lot, guys. Let me know if you want an episode where we could just be ranting about tax and capitalism. Let me know in the comments below. But let's just take a breath. I'm doing that thing where I'm getting passionate and I just rant and you probably can't even understand what I'm saying because I'm going da-da-da-da. Let's chill. But now I want to get into One Nation a bit. This past week, they dropped in the polls a little bit, which was a little bit like a little bit on edge, but then they regained popularity. Obviously, the polls are very sort of unpredictable, of very, they're not very certain. You can't really predict much on them. You can't really wage too much on them. And like Pauline Hanson says, wait till the election. That's the real results of who's popular and who's not, okay? Who's voted in and who's not. That's what you have to rely on, which I agree, okay? But I just want to get into One Nation a little bit here, because what's also extremely just frustrating is how hypocritical people are towards One Nation. Firstly, it's just not fair. But honestly, when is anything ever fair? And secondly, it's just so hypocritical, guys. Going back a few weeks ago, the whole Gina Reinhardt thing with billionaire funding into One Nation, I made a video about it ages ago. Do you know how many billionaires support Labour? Have a look into Pratt Holdings, right? What about the Libs? The Libs and Labour are the top two parties with the most billionaire donations. So why aren't people calling them out? If people have a problem with billionaires donating to political parties, then alright, that is a valid issue to have. I can see why you would have that issue. But on top of that, if you don't support One Nation, then take it up with the political party you do support. Don't just shit on One Nation for doing it. And also, just another thing here. Alright, I know for a fact Labour has billionaire donations. Now, why aren't they public about it? At least One Nation was public about Gina Reinhardt donating to their party. At least when Pauline Hanson was donated the plane, it was a bit of a spectacle sort of event. It was very cool, but at least it was public. Okay, at least we saw that, right, you're benefiting off Gina Reinhardt. We see that you're getting a plane. Great. We all know that it's public information that Reinhardt donates to One Nation. Okay, but in my opinion, I don't have a problem with billionaires donating to political parties. However, when it does become a problem for me is obviously if the party gets swayed by big donations, which in no way should they. And we always have to call them out if they do get swayed, because that's not fair for the rest of us that supports them. It's not what political parties should do. However, every Australian citizen that I reckon should be able to donate to whatever party they want to, and however much they would like to, showing their support. I'm not up for controlling how much people can spend their money on and controlling how much they can donate and how much they can spend on things. I don't give a fucking shit about that. It's none of my concern. But while people who support Labour are trying to call out One Nation for billionaire donations, have a look at your own shit. Okay, stop being a hypocrite. Have a look into what your party is doing. At least One Nation was public about their donations and relationship with Gina Reinhardt. Which brings me into my next frustration with political parties, alright? This housing crisis. I'm so sick of it. I'm so sick of watching politicians just go on rants about things that have to do with housing, but I'm like, you're not even addressing the fundamental reason for the housing crisis, alright? It's a supply and demand crisis. To me, with this whole of, we're making houses more affordable and introducing this 5% deposit scheme, it really does not make a difference when you're not addressing the core issue, all right? In the overview of things, it simply doesn't make that much of a difference because it's supply and demand. We don't have the supply. The house does not exist. I'll just chuck up the table over here on the screen and editing just for reference, because it looks like we want to build, 200,000 houses by the end of the year. However, we're projected to build 120,000. Well, that's an 80,000 houses in shortfall, okay? And then you can just get into, right, in Australia, the people per house is 2.5 according to the ABS. But then in a short form I did the other day, I went, guys, look, let's just say people per house is 4 people per house, just to make a bigger point here. We would still be in a shortfall. The core problem is the demand. Our supply obviously cannot keep up because another aspect is approvals do take a long time. We're in a bit of a choke point with that. And also, just adding to this further, even if our supply could keep up, the social amenities around cannot sustain a high increase of people in a short period of time. Then, we have to have a look into a couple of Albanese's posts, okay? He keeps posting about building these unit blocks, but I think that we just need to have a bit of a look into whether they're actually being well constructed just because of the rush time on all of them. I'm not pointing out a specific sort of build here. I'm just saying that overall look of things, we've experienced this before here in Australia. A rush build and it comes out a year later that there's 2 to 3 defects in each unit. Then Australia ends up not having the modern up-to-date standard of living because we rush so much to try to accommodate for people that we simply cannot house. To me, this housing crisis is just so simple. It's not even about, like, we can get into other aspects here, but it's not about that in this sort of circumstance. It's not about, oh, you know, mass migration, I don't want it because of the cultural change that's happening in Australia. That's okay, that's a fair argument, but in this regard, it's not even about that right now. It's simply, we cannot fit more people into our country. And also adding to this, we have to have a look into Australia's livable land size. What's the percentage? It's like 85% or even higher than that of people who live in a short radius to the coast. Yeah, that's for a reason. It's extremely hard to live in the outback of Australia. It's simply just not livable. Rainfall is extremely unpredictable. The land's extremely hard to yield any sort of crop with. Good luck doing that. And yeah, that's the reason why Alice Springs, for example, has a population of 25,000 people? Don't quote me on that, but it's around that. It's just not livable out there. So while people could look at us and go, wow, that's a huge country, can't they just build more housing for it and maybe expand out into the outback a little bit and take away the strain on cities? Well, no, we can't really do that. And also, for example, England has a population of 60 million people. And also there's something out there that's like the size of England, as in the actual country, can fit into Australia like 36 times or something. But looking at it, it looks like we have heaps of room, right? England has a population of 60 million people and their one country can fit into Australia X amount of times. But we really don't have that much room because it's just not livable. So that argument just really falls to pieces when someone tries to say that. And while saying all of this, okay, we can get caught up in debating what I just said. However, at the end of the day, it's our country. We should be able to say, you know what, hey government, let's not do the mass immigration right now. We think it's a supply and demand issue. Let's just cut it and focus inwards on what's actually happening in our country. But it really does not feel like we're being listened to right now. And the fundamental aspect of the government not listening to the people is just not happening right now. We should be able to say that. We should be able to voice our opinions and say, look, it's just not working. Like, we've had to look into it. Come on, government, let's go forward with this. Let's just cut the mass immigration right now. Focus a bit more inwards on us. Then we can discuss increasing the immigration once we've got our shit sorted out. So it just really annoys me when Labor comes out with the federal budget and says, we're helping young people get into housing. No, you're not. You're not helping anyone get into housing. What are you guys not getting here? I'm so sick of watching people just not wanting to say it straight and try to dance around the fact, which, off topic now, I think that's very much part of the reason why Pauline Hanson and Barnaby Joyce are just so popular right now. It's because they don't do that. They just say it straight. Now guys, the last point that I just want to talk about here is the state that Australia is in free speech wise, right? Currently, I think this is one of the most important things to me right now. And if you actually have a look through that Digital Duty of Care Act and have a look through the hate speech laws, in my opinion, they're both interpretation laws. We've said it multiple times in the past, something that I might find hateful might not be something that you find hateful and vice versa, right? That's what interpretation is. And if an interpretation law exists, I think regardless of what it's trying to combat, that's a danger to society because everybody's interpretation is extremely subjective. So something that I've also been noticing to do with that, all right, we know that these laws and this legislation right now is extremely vague. We know that. But something else that I've been noticing is this sort of scare factor of it all. In my opinion, people or the government will use this word, extremism or racism to sort of scare people into not speaking. Because obviously we don't want to condone those things and also, want things to be in place to combat that because they are problems. However, it then stifles people from speaking out. because the left can just say, oh, you're an extremist, you're accepting extremism in this country, or you're racist, you're accepting racism in this country because you're opposed to the hate speech laws, and that's what they're trying to combat. And sort of put a blanket over you of like, that's you now. And that's where we have to sort of turn around and say, no, sure, those issues do need to be dealt with. However, these hate speech laws and this Digital Duty of Care Act are too vague and too subjective. And furthermore, we just have to say, look, guys, multiple things can exist at the same time. You know, we can say that that is an issue, all right, we recognize that. However, you're creating another issue because you're supposedly trying to combat the first issue. God, I hope that makes sense, guys. It's just so frustrating seeing that we don't live in a free society. And that's the main thing that always just sticks with me. Obviously, we have so many other issues that we need to deal with right now. We're really in a bit of a state right now in Australia. We have housing issues, we have affordability issues, we have cultural issues, we have government issues. We're in a little bit of a conundrum right now. But every single day, the free speech aspect just keeps sticking with me because I think it's the fundamental way that we change those issues that I've just listed. If we don't have the ability to speak out against things, then we don't have the ability to change things. And I know a lot of people say, well, you know, you're speaking out right now, aren't you? Well, yeah, okay, sure I am. However, if you cannot see how that's different to someone, say, in America speaking out, then I don't know what to tell you. So, free speech is the most important thing, guys. But look, that's the end of this episode. I hope you guys enjoyed another rant. Let me know your thoughts about everything that we've covered in the comments down below, and let me know if you do want that video on tax and capitalism. Also, guys, make sure you join the waitlist at Kanga. It's like linked in my bio. It should be here on YouTube as well, but that's where our waitlist is for all of our sort of merch that we wear, our Australian flag jumper, our Ozfast t-shirts, everything like that. Go check it out, join the waitlist, and if we have enough demand, we'll go straight into production. So thanks a lot, guys. I'll see you in my next one.